Hey everybody, welcome back to the Som TV podcast. This is, it's great. It's kind of a homecoming for me and all of you. We have Master Sommelier and Som Film alumni and so much Som TV content alumni, Jay Fletcher, on the podcast to talk about something you either love or I don't think you can hate chartreuse, but I do think that you can not have been exposed to it by the right person. Jay Fletcher is, in my opinion, the world's tour guide to this wildly green-colored drink. And I learned more from him about this drink than anyone else. And it's an honor to have him on. Before we get started, I do want to say the next film that I have directed is called The Whole Animal. And it is a massive film about the culture of food that we filmed in 7 countries. And it comes out next month for its theatrical and premiere events. And we're about to start sharing quite a bit of information on that. You don't want to miss it. If you are a foodie, or you like to enjoy the finer things of life and travel, you're going to love this movie. It's very special to us and very excited. It's got some of the best chefs in the world and an incredible story of our culture and things through food. So make sure that you follow this podcast, subscribe to our social channels, and get ready for some badass events. All right. Jay, how are you?
Hi, Jason. Thanks for having me on today. Things are good. Winter season's almost over in the old mining town of Aspen. Sometimes spring has sprung, but we got another foot yesterday, so it is what it is.
Yeah, well, you're a busy guy, whether you're skiing or whatever else in Aspen. But you know, it's been a hot minute since I've been able to have you on the pod, and it's totally appropriate. I often try to preach about these kind of liquors and drinks and things that I think are misunderstood or underappreciated, and I think chartreuse, it might be at one of the top of the mountain. I mean, this thing sits at the top chalet of the mountain of misunderstood. And it's just, I want to start with this question of what is chartreuse and why do you care so much about it? You know, what is it?
Well, of course, it's an herbal liqueur, but you know, like all great liquor or wine things, they have to have the greatest liqueurs and the greatest wines in the world come from very, very special places and have very, very special stories. Now, green chartreuse in general, there's multiple different varieties of chartreuse, have a great history, a story that goes back to 10,000, 800 years ago. It's a crazy story. It's a crazy product from a crazy place. But also, it's got a really crazy alcoholic high to it. It's a different kind of an alcohol buzz than you're going to get from any other product in the world. And you can certainly hate green chartreuse if you drink too much of it. You know, this is a product that, the Carthusian Order of Chartreuse was founded in 1084. Supposedly, some 600 years later, this secret manuscript from the king's guard was handed to these Carthusian monks, and this secret recipe had a blend of over 130 plants, roots, flowers, and herbs that were supposedly the elixir of life. So it took another 150 years for them to actually propagate the liqueur itself. It was actually 1737 when they finished the recipe for the elixir of long life, and they've been producing this on and off now for centuries, which is, pretty wild.
I always trust a bunch of men living together in silence to tell me about the elixir of life.
Well, I'm not sure if their life is actually the elixir of it, but, we actually visited the monastery, out of the town of Voiron in France, in the French Alps. Pretty cool spot. Historically been there for a long time. I thought at one time that there's a big park there called the Parc de Chartreuse, and I actually thought it was named after the liquor, but actually the area of Chartreuse was there, and this area of the Alps, was there in 1084, and they actually took the name of the religious order from the mountain area itself, not vice versa.
Yeah. So, okay. When I think, one thing that's really important for me to mention with chartreuse is I really think this is one of those liqueurs that if you have not been introduced to it, you probably haven't stumbled in and said, hey, let me just try this. I feel like there are evangelists for this stuff. And it is, let's just say it's a really full of flavor thing. And we'll get into kind of the 3 things, whether it ages or not. And I know that you are very passionate about this. Chartreuse, what makes chartreuse different than any other Amaro or schnapps or any of these other things that I think it gets looped in with on a shelf in a bar?
Well, it is an herbal liqueur. So, all liqueurs have sugar and some sort of a base ingredient, base liquor of some sort with addition of roots, vegetables, flavoring, coloring, etc. So chartreuse is different for a couple different reasons. I mean, the regular green chartreuse is 110 proof. The original elixir is 71 proof or 142% alcohol.
That's the elixir vegetal, right?
Yeah, the elixir vegetal Grand Chartreuse is actually the original recipe. And the original recipe was supposed to be for apothecary purposes. You would take it. It helped with cholera in 1803. It's a medicinal healing salve herb kind of a thing that can be used to dress things and or take in tablespoons at a time. It was later that they developed actually the drink chartreuse itself, which was kind of watered down to 110 proof. Which when you do spirits that are 110 proof, first of all the alcohol content is much higher than most liquors. And then the herbal fact that this is, again, a secret recipe that's never been revealed to anyone besides, some researchers say 2, but the official website says 3 monks know the recipe. They actually do have a code of silence. They keep the recipe to themselves. They grind and macerate these herbs in secrecy. And so for all these years, no one actually knows what's in chartreuse, and it can't be duplicated. There have been companies that have tried to duplicate it, especially in the late 1800s as it became very popular. But there's one company that makes it. The monks make it. The distillery has actually moved 7 times over the last few hundred years. Was hit by a lightning bolt once and burned for weeks. Another time it was buried by an avalanche. They were exiled from France twice and had to come back. They started a distillery in Spain. They started one near Marseille. So it's a storied history, but the drink itself is, I didn't even realize that when I was a kid, I was drinking a drink called the swamp water. I don't know if you've ever had that, but it was basically green chartreuse and pineapple juice. And, I know you got all messed up on them, but I had no idea that was actually my first experience with chartreuse.
I had a really cool experience. Now, first of all, making the Somm films and being with people like you and doing Somm TV, I've had a lot of people, I've found people who are, when I say evangelists, I mean crazy passionate about chartreuse. I mean, you are sort of the Pied Piper, in my opinion, of all these people. But I have had people that at the end of the night, they insist you have to have chartreuse. It's like the thing. It'll make you go to bed. It'll make you have crazy dreams. It'll do all this stuff. And one time I was in New Orleans, and I'd never heard of elixir vegetal, which is, I don't know if it's illegal in the States, but you can't get it. It comes
they don't sell it in America.
Yeah, so it's this little tiny bottle, and it looks like a medicine bottle. And, you put a little bit in a shot glass or on a spoon, and you put it in your mouth and you swallow it. You get 2 minutes of speaking to all your dead relatives. It's an incredible experience. They all just, you black out, you wake up in a bus stop somewhere in Pennsylvania, and all of your dead relatives tell you what they think about the way you've lived your life. It's an amazing thing. Then you wake back up and you're in the bus stop. But my experience with this elixir vegetal is insane. You have the craziest dreams. People say you'll have wild dreams. Jade, can you back this up for me? It is like this wildly potent, crazy, concentrated, high alcohol, but it does affect your dreams. Am I crazy on this? Or
no,
right?
That's absolutely correct. I've had some crazy dreams on both chartreuse and absinthe before. I drank some original absinthe. My whole start with chartreuse was I was gifted a bottle from a friend of mine, and I'm guessing from the looks of the bottle, it was old hammered green glass, and I'm guessing it was from probably the 1830s or 1840s. And it was this giant, like literish or even bigger bottle. And I didn't really know what it was, but I started to sip it and I went, wow, this is crazy good. And again, the mental part of chartreuse, it puts you in a different spot. You think differently. You feel good, actually. You feel really, really good when you drink chartreuse, up to the point where you drink too much and then you don't feel so good anymore. And you have to be very, very, very careful of this stuff. So I started to drink the chartreuse and thinking it was pretty cool. And then I actually appraised a wine cellar in Philadelphia. And as it turned out, the widow's husband was a pre-prohibitionist distiller And in that wine collection was a collection of old chartreuses and absinthes and scotches from the turn of the century.
Wow.
So at that time, I acquired some chartreuse from Tarragona, some chartreuse from the 1800s. I even had a bottle of white chartreuse, which is fairly rare. They only made it for a couple of different time periods in the 1800s. And, I didn't realize at the time, but I had about 10 different bottles of chartreuse at this restaurant that I was the sommelier and general manager at called Syzygy. And I just drank them with my friends. This is in the early 90s. Mid 90s. So, we drank these chartreuses and enjoyed them, not knowing that, today they would probably be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But we had a good time with them. Later, I started to drink. I started to, of course, teach classes for the quartermaster sommeliers, and I've been doing that for the last 25 years. But I do a liquor lecture and talk about chartreuse and the different times that I had drank it and the experiences I had. And then over the years, when I go out to restaurants, chartreuse would just end up at my table sometimes, which, as a matter of fact, happened to me 3 nights ago at the Little Nell. I'm having a nice dinner, and all of a sudden a glass of VEP green shows up, and you don't really necessarily want to drink it, but you got to kind of do.
Well, this is your fault. I mean, you walk around telling everybody about chartreuse. People they're going to bring it to your table. It is one of these wild things to describe that I don't know how to describe it other than, you taste alcohol, you taste this herbal concoction, but you, having been somebody who can describe and break down alcohol for, the better part of your entire career in life, how do you describe, are you going to pour yourself some right now?
I'll pour myself a little bit of VEP now. There's the regular bottling of chartreuse. The original elixir, it was the one in 1737, but it was actually 1840 that the regular green came out, and they called it liqueur de saint, or liquor of the saints, and chartreuse verte. So it was green chartreuse, and again, a little bit. So the regular bottling that you'll see pretty much behind the bars and things like that. He also produced a yellow in 1840, and now as I've gotten older and into my 60s, I find that the yellow is a little bit easier on me than the green, at less proof and also a little bit more honeyed and sweet. So the yellow came around in 1840 as well. VEP, which is Vinicilement Exceptionnellement Prolong, is really the height of chartreuse. It's their best product that they make. And in chartreuse, in Voiron, which was the old distillery, they've actually moved it up near the monastery now in 2019. Theoretically has the longest liquor cellar in the world. It's about 1.5 kilometers long, and there's these large upright foods of chartreuse aging. So the regular chartreuse, yellow and green, different formulas, age in these upright foods. And then the VEP goes into smaller barrels, demi-muids, that actually are then aged for another 10 to 12 years in the distillation room. So you'll see these barrels in the distillation room where it's a little bit warmer. So the product gets much more concentrated and smooth and exotic. Now, in modern days, chartreuse has become so popular that oftentimes the product is allocated. You can't just buy VEP anymore because everyone wants it, and they only make a certain amount of bottles. I think something like 1,200 bottles a year.
Wow, so it's that small. Jeez,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
It's not that much for the VEP. Now on the nose, this is really a minty. This is the green to me is it's really green. I mean, we're talking about the color is natural; it's a chlorophyll color, but the nose itself is really, really herbal and meaning. It's really, really, to me, it's minty, it's spearmint, it's pine needles, it's orange, it's pear, it's super exotic. I mean, and this product itself has, first of all these exotic, crazy herbal and flower aromas, but then at the same time, because it's aged in wood for so long, we have the aromatics of the barrel itself coming through.
It's such a unique thing. There's a line in a Tarantino film where he says, "A drink so good they named a color after it." And it's one of these things where you look at the color of chartreuse and you can go, "Hey, it's green. Is it green?" It's this like very deep, unique shade of a green that really you can't put it in a crayon box, is what I would say.
No, it's a combination of between green and yellow is really what it is. One of the original recipes for chartreuse was red. It actually came out green as they kept tweaking. They didn't really know what to do with this original secret manuscript, but they kept tweaking it. And, it's kind of a cool history as well because the manuscript was there, they had it, but then during the French Revolution, the monastic orders, were expelled from France. So the original manuscript was given to a French government apothecary, and he kept it, and he actually gave it to the Ministry of Interior, but they refused it, and it ended up actually being back in the hands of the monks again. So the original manuscript was gone and then come again. So
good thing there were no Xerox machines back then that could keep it secret.
That's right. And the first time that chartreuse was being used as a color name was probably 1884. So it's kind of crazy that, and now if you actually Google chartreuse, you'll come up with a bunch of things that are that green yellow color as opposed to the liquor itself. But also, they were, again, in 1903, they were banned from France when the government nationalized, and they took over the distillery and they moved to Spain at that time. They also sold the rights to chartreuse to a rival company that didn't have the recipe, and they made basically a fake chartreuse for some years that eventually went bankrupt. They bought the shares back and have now the total rights for the name chartreuse all over the world.
This is just so fascinating. I mean, this would be, if I could get myself lodged in with these monks, aside from playing the song "It's Raining Men" over and over again with them, I would definitely want to tell this story. The thought of this secret manuscript, this recipe. I mean, the crazy thing with these herbal liqueurs and everything is that they can have such a standardization how every bottle is the same. It blows me away. I don't know, because all of these things they put in it are seasonal. They have to be found in weird places. I'm imagining they don't have farms, on premises with all of the ingredients. I mean, I'm sure there's some things, but it just blows me away how they are able to maintain the kind of, I guess, consistency across all bottles.
Well, again, this recipe, it actually is herbs, flowers, and spices from all over the world. So they actually acquire these things from all these different places. And then some of them are ground, some of them are seeped, some of them are infused, some of them are macerated, some of them are added back after distillation, some of them are redistilled. So the secret recipe kind of puts it all together. Chartreuse is another kind of an odd animal in the fact that it actually changes in the bottle and gets better. Like most liquors, when you put them in the bottle, are inert. So, for instance, if we have a 40-year Scotch, it's been in the barrel 40 years, and you bottle it, that's what it is. But if you have a 10-year, let's say, whiskey or Scotch, it will not change in the glass. Once you put it in the glass or stainless steel, it does not change flavor. But chartreuse is actually one of the liquor products that actually gets more complex and richer with age, which is kind of crazy. So, it's definitely collectible, and the older ones are even more intense. These old chartreuses now are super expensive. You can rarely find them. The cult thing happened some years ago, and, people source these things from all over the world. When you go into some of these small restaurants in France, you'll see some of these chartreuses from the 30s and 40s, and they'll be very, very expensive, but sometimes they're worth paying for. I always try to have a glass of something when I see a chartreuse collection like that.
Yeah, me too. I do remember it was a lot easier about 14, 15 years ago than it is now. I mean, I know that for a fact.
Just like Burgundy or anything else, people realize what an artisanal product it is, and they want it. And it's, again, it is a product that it isn't for everybody. The green is super, super herbal, and it might not, fit your palate. They do make a few other different things. They make vodka there. They make different eau de vies. They've made some different. They made a liqueur de nine centenaire in 1984 to commemorate the 900th anniversary of the foundation of the Abbey, which is a 47% alcohol blend, similar to.
Do they make anything you can't set on fire? Is there anything that they make that you can't just ignite in your gas tank?
Well, the yellows are, milder. Yellows are more 40%, 42%, depending. They made a Sommelier's cuvée, they call it the Somme. It was a collaboration between the sommeliers of France and the monks They put that one together in 2008. I actually had a bottle of that from the winery, the distillery itself, which was excellent. But that went down on a party a couple of months ago.
I'm sure
they
it
make
did.
a Genepi, which is a gentian root thing that you'll see in the mountains. They started that in 2003. They have this one called Chartreuse 1605 Liqueur de Elixir. And that one will hurt you really, really bad. It's 57% alcohol, and it's kind of a combination of the elixir and the green chartreuse. And we vowed off of that one. I've got a bottle here. We got into a party some months ago, and that one's a kicker. It's super, super herbal and really, really hot. And these products, these additional products, you can't find them in America. They're only sold in France and in Europe. But they also make a framboise liqueur. They make, you can see there's there's a little walnut liqueur that they make. They make a lot of different things.
Listeners, can you see that Jay is somebody who is like, you don't do anything half-assed. And when you truly love something and care about something, history and taste and all this stuff, you go all in. I'm going to have Lynn take a picture of you. Jay's wearing a chartreuse sweatshirt. He's got a baby Yoda behind him with a chartreuse hat. He's got all these chartreuse bottles, a chartreuse poster. He's got a tattoo on his left butt cheek that says "Chartreuse is my home." It's an amazing thing. When did you first get into chartreuse? Like, who gave you the first glass that made you such a nut job with this? I love it.
Well, like I said, this guy gave me a bottle from the 1800s. A friend of mine.
So you weren't introduced to just like, I'm at a bar, I had it as a float in a cocktail or something. You literally got some really...
exactly not true. We had chartreuse when I tended a bar in Wisconsin in the 70s. Chartreuse was one of those things that was, you'd give to people that you wanted them to make a bad face. I mean, the stuff's actually pretty tough on you. And if you're not used to it, like we have a thing where we try to bang chartreuse and not make any kind of a facial expression, which is hard to do. Try it sometime. Because when chartreuse goes down, especially the green, it's 110 proof. So it's going to burn going down. But when it hits the bottom of your stomach, it blows up almost like a gaseous bomb. And you'll get a heat wave that'll come up through your esophagus. It'll really kick you. Funny story one time.
I hope you get to run their new marketing campaign. It's really good.
I had Doug Craddock with me, who's the master sommelier, and we had just finished dinner. And so I ordered everyone a glass of VEP, and they came in these Riedel cordial glasses, they're about 2 ounces. And he had actually ordered a glass of grappa for himself. And so I looked at him and I said, I bet you can't take, a glass of this green chartreuse and bang it without making a face. And so I said, like this, and see, I take almost 2 ounces of it, and I go, see, it doesn't even affect me, even though I'm like burning up inside and it's killing me. Well, he takes a hit of this. He says, well, I can drink grappa and then drink green chartreuse. So he takes the grappa, or he takes the green chartreuse and he bangs it. And then he goes, and I can drink this grappa just like it's water. But he forgets about the Hiroshima bomb that's going to come up from his stomach.
Oh, God.
And as he drinks the grappa, the heat wave from the chartreuse hits it in the midsection, and he shudders and stands up and stumbles out the door. And that's the last time we ever saw him that night. But there was another night I was sitting in a restaurant, and the waiters were bringing me chartreuse, and this guy that I'd been watching bang gin and tonics across the room, and he probably had about 5 of them. He was a businessman kind of guy, and you could see that he was into his stuff. And he goes, well, what's that stuff? And I said, well, it's chartreuse. You want some? And he says, yeah. And I said, but you gotta take it down in one pull. And that guy learned a lesson too. It wasn't quite like gin, but we've had fun with chartreuse over the years. It's a great, people do use it for cocktails. It's in the word cocktail, I think, is probably one of the most famous ones. Again, there's other different things. The yellow is much milder. To me, the yellow is kind of my favorite these days. I don't drink as much green chartreuse as I used to, but I will drink the yellow. And just for maybe a palate cleanser, an aperitif, or in the afternoon when I feel like having a little buzz on, I'll have a little bit of yellow. VEP, of course.
Love it, of course, yeah. So where do you recommend people start with this? How do you start it? Should it be cold? Should it be warm? Should it be in a cocktail? If you're like, I've never had it, but you want them to get into it and like it, where do you start with chartreuse?
Well, I think, again, yellow is a little bit milder. They suggest drinking it on the rocks or with soda or with a twist of lime for the green. The regular green is a great product and the regular yellow, but the VEP is really the stuff. So you got to look for it. It's expensive. You'll see it on the back bar. But to me, it's the VEP that's the most similar to the original stuff that I tasted from the 1800s. It's a very, very similar product to what we tasted back then in 20 some years ago when I had a collection of wines from the 1800s. But the VEP is something that it's really, really special. I have multiple bottles in my wine cellar. It does age again if you can find it. It's it's expensive, but not crazy expensive. Mm-hmm. So I'd suggest trying it on the regular green and yellow first, and then working your way up to the VEP.
Kind of after dinner kind of thing, or is this just 7 a.m. right before your run kind of a thing?
It's going to affect you. Chartreuse isn't something you want to take lightly because of the high alcohol content on it. So it's something you want to have with food in your stomach. Absolutely. Back in when I was a wilder, crazier guy 30 some years ago, we used to drink it for sport. And
for sport.
Yeah. And late night. And, sometimes I would,
I hate to tell everybody I drank this stuff for sport with Jay like 3 years ago. So it wasn't that long ago.
Well, I used to also have this occasionally, I was in the wholesale business for 20 years and I would work with suppliers, and I had this little game. It was, it was a little game that they didn't know I was playing, and it was called Crack the Supplier. And if you can get a supplier to want to go home, you don't have to work with them anymore. So one of the things I would do is I'd take them around Aspen and make them do shots of green chartreuse with me. And green chartreuse at 8,000 feet will affect you fairly quickly. So sometimes I'd have an early night if I could do my job correctly. But a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun with it over the years.
I'm trying to figure out how to put in context. First of all, I do want to say we're going to be covering Aspen Food and Wine. Som TV will be with lots of stuff. And we're going to film something with Jay about chartreuse, whether he likes it or not. And you'll be able to see this sweatshirt he owns and all of this stuff, but also get a chance to actually visually take a look at, his wonderfully beautiful insanity about this alcohol. My last question to you would be, if somebody wants to visit the monastery, is this a hard thing to do? Can you actually get an appointment? I've never been. And I pride myself in getting into strange places in the wine world. Is it hard to go?
Well, the new distillery just opening up for visitors in 2022. So because of French liquor laws and safety reasons, the distillery in Voiron, which has been there, for quite some time now, is only aging. They put a new blend out called the Food 147. That was released in 2019. So that is actually the only product that is actually aging in Voiron at this time. They moved the distillery up toward the monastery itself, which is about 30 miles and uphill from there, which is fantastic. The town of Voiron itself is a cute little town. They still have a historical museum there, so you can actually get a tour. They've put together, again, COVID has shut things down in different ways, but they have now educational tours that you can take there. You can actually go up to the monastery, which is crazy. If you go to there, you're like driving down a road that looks like a bike path. It's way high in the mountains. I mean, there's big jagged peaks and rustic. I mean, when I was there, it reminded me of, Conan the Barbarian, the same emblems that you see on the chartreuse bottles. These granite balls with crosses on them are everywhere up there. The mountains just loom up from everywhere. There's a Parc de Chartreuse, which is a wilderness park. The monastery itself has a code of silence around it, so you don't speak or talk. Or you'd be really quiet, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful place. But they are opening up tours, I believe, to the new distillery starting this May. So I think I believe from what I've read that the opening of the new monastery, new distillery, is going to be available for public visits May 23rd of 2022. So it's a new thing, but it's just a beautiful part of France anyway. It's just scenic, beautiful, rolly foothills, jagged peaks, giant massifs coming off in the distance. It's a really, really cool place in France.
Well, people who listen to the podcast know I'm really good at shutting up, so I'm sure I'd be welcome there. You're right. Jay, it is a tremendous honor, and I want everybody that's listening to this to know we will have something coming with Jay in June in regards to this actual lovely drink for Som TV. And where do you get that sweatshirt you're wearing? How do I buy that?
You buy that at the distillery there in Florent, as well as my cool little chartreuse glasses. You got these little emblem glasses that are pretty badass. We've got a bunch of stuff there. We had a good time. They gave me, Frederick Wildman is the U.S. importer for chartreuse. And I, over the years, sold quite a bit of chartreuse. And I sold a lot of Wildman products. So they gave me a fantastic tour of the distillery. We went up to the monastery ourselves on our own, and then rolled back down and did a tour. And it was really, really, something super special. I sent a few of my friends there as well. Jimmy and the crew from Jimmy's Restaurant in Aspen all did a VIP tour there. So you can get these products there in France. They also sell those little mini bottles, basically all over the place. A little elixir vegetal bottles. Last time we were in Spain, we had a whole backpack full of them. We bought about 15 of them, and we were banging them around out of the bottle. You talk about drinking that stuff with a spoon, 71%. We were drinking them. I still have a little bit left in this one, but the elixir vegetal is hard to come by again because you can only get it there. I don't think the United States sells products that are that high in alcohol. The older bottles say 71% alcohol on them, but the modern ones say 69% on them, and the website says 69. So somewhere along the last 10 years, they changed the proof from 71 to 69%, and probably because of French liquor laws, I'm almost positive.
Yeah, it makes sense. I will say again, Elixir Vegetal, you want to talk to your dead relatives, that's your ticket right there.
Be very careful.
Be very careful. Jay, I'm so glad to have you back on the podcast, and so glad to see you again. I missed you. Everybody, if you do not have Som TV, go to somtv.com. It's $49.99 for the entire year. Our next big feature film, The Whole Animal, is coming. And of course, we have Cup of Salvation, Judgment of Paris, Ghost of Spring Mountain, all of these great feature films and lots more coming to Som TV. Everybody be safe, and thank you for listening. Do not forget to give us a good rating wherever you listen to your pods. Bye-bye.